What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and in this video, I will break down how Oda tricked us about the true nature of Luffy's Devil Fruit from the very beginning. And I will argue that he always planned to take the story in this direction. Oda's brilliant foreshadowing over the course of 25 years all led up to this moment, and it was all right there in front of us. But more than just foreshadowing what has already happened, Oda left us clues about Luffy's future ultimate power and the final battle in the story, so let's get into it. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our One Piece content and you want to see more in the future, just leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it really helps with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you're new here, or maybe you watch our videos but you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, remember that subscribing and hitting that bell is a completely free but very real way of directly supporting the channel. Finally, this video will contain One Piece manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. Now, ever since Joy Boy and Nika were first introduced in One Piece, in chapters 628 and 1018 respectively, fans have of course been speculating that Luffy will turn out to be either Joy Boy or Nika, or both. We now know that Luffy is in fact Joy Boy reborn, and that the true name of his devil fruit, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, is actually the Hito Hito no Mi mythical model Nika. This was a massive revelation that set the One Piece fanbase ablaze and absolutely broke the internet as the hype surrounding the latest One Piece chapters reached historic levels. The fact that Luffy would turn out to be Nika was foreshadowed through his silhouette all the way back in Skypiea, and the existence of Nika was also hinted at through the Sun Pirates. However, long before chapter 1044, and even long before Skypiea, Oda had been teasing us with the true nature of Luffy's Devil Fruit. In fact, in order to understand the full extent of Oda's 5D chess moves, we have to go all the way back to chapter 1. I got into One Piece through the manga, and the first time I saw the Gomu Gomu no Mi in chapter 1 of the story, that spiral design on the fruit itself caught my attention. I just felt like those spirals were put there for a reason. It wasn't just a random artistic choice, there had to be some meaning behind it. However, as I read through the manga, I kind of forgot about this, and then as new devil fruits were introduced, a lot of them had some variation of a spiral design, so I just kind of took it for granted that this is how devil fruits look. But after the whole Nika Sun God reveal, and then after the events of the latest chapters where the Gomu Gomu no Mi was thrust into the spotlight, I started looking into ancient symbols that incorporated a similar spiral design. That is when I found out that extremely similar spirals to the ones on the Gomu Gomu no Mi have been used by multiple civilizations throughout history to symbolize the sun. In ancient Celtic culture in particular, this type of spiral was likely used to symbolize the sun. And the double spiral, which can also be clearly seen on Luffy's Devil Fruit, was said to represent the sun's journey over the course of the year, with a specific emphasis on the equinoxes. Now, just like with the ancient kingdom in the world of One Piece, there is a lot we still don't know about the ancient civilizations in our own world, including the Celts. We simply don't know all the specific meanings that these symbols held for the ancient people that created them. That said, some speculate that Celtic single spirals also symbolized growth, birth, and the expansion of consciousness, with the double spiral also being a symbol for balance and equality. All of these meanings make perfect sense in the context of Luffy and his Devil Fruit. After quote-unquote dying, Luffy is born again as Joy Boy, his Devil Fruit awakens, and his powers and his consciousness expands. After all, not only is Luffy now stronger than ever before, but the Gorosei implied that in some sense, his powers are only limited by his own imagination, by his own consciousness. There was a bit of confusion about this part because the official Viz translation differs from the unofficial one, but the implication is that the Nika fruit allows unprecedented freedom of movement and action for its user, so much so that the fruit's power is considered to be a godly and in some ways even ridiculous power. Furthermore, Joy Boy's mission dating back to the Void Century was to bring balance and equality to the world. Equality to all people and races, and freedom from oppression by the world government or its predecessors. Personally, I don't believe that every single detail in the One Piece manga has some sort of profoundly important meaning, and that literally every panel is some sort of complex puzzle that Oda intended for us to solve. There is such a thing as looking too deeply into minuscule details and overthinking things. But with that said, Luffy's Devil Fruit has played an incredibly important role in the story, and that role has only become more important in the latest chapters. I believe that Oda always plans to have Luffy's Devil Fruit awaken in this way, so I don't think it's too far-fetched to assume that even in the first chapter, Oda drew the Devil Fruit with that distinctive spiral pattern for a reason. Oda has clearly studied ancient civilizations, and he has implemented many aspects of these civilizations into the world of One Piece. So I'm inclined to believe that the spiral design on the Gomu Gomu no Mi, aka the Nika Devil Fruit, was an intentional clue about the fruit's true power. But as is often the case with Oda, the clue was just vague enough for us to overlook it until the big reveal was made, and then we finally understood what Oda was doing, but only in hindsight. And this doesn't just stop at the design of Luffy's Devil Fruit. In that first chapter, we also saw Luffy smiling and being full of joy after eating the fruit, even though based on everything he knew about the Devil Fruit at that point in time, he probably should have been upset about consuming it rather than being happy. After all, Luffy's dream was to become a pirate and sail the high seas, and yet he just found out that he ate a fruit which not only changed his body forever, but also prevented him from ever being able to swim. Not being able to swim is an absolutely massive handicap for any sailor and for any pirate. Not only that, but Luffy couldn't really control his Devil Fruit powers at first, so it's not like they made him stronger right away. If anything, he was taunted for being weird and a freak due to his rubber body. And he would have to work hard for years before he learned to actually control his powers. And yet somehow, even as a kid, Luffy knew that his newfound powers were a blessing, even though most people in that part of the world at that point in time would have considered it a curse. Luffy felt joy, and he knew that everything would work out for the best, and he was already on his way to becoming Joy Boy. There were also many other little hints and clues along the way that could be considered foreshadowing for Luffy's Devil Fruit being related to Joy Boy and Nika, but a lot of these were a bit of a stretch, no pun intended. Nevertheless, now that we know that Luffy's Devil Fruit is not a Paramecia type, but rather a mythical zone type, we have to acknowledge that Luffy's attacks and gears were actually major clues about the true nature of his Devil Fruit power. Initially, most of Luffy's attacks were named after weapons, like the Gomu Gomu no Pistol and Gomu Gomu no Rocket. And this was based on the fact that back in the first chapter, Luffy claimed that his punch was as powerful as a pistol. But then later on, and especially after the time skip, we get more and more techniques named after animals, including a hawk, elephant, grizzly, python, cobra, hydra, and so on. Interestingly enough, that most recent one, Hydra, is a creature from Greek mythology, so a mythical animal. And then we have Luffy's different forms or gears. These very distinct forms or transformations were always more in line with the workings of a zone fruit than the workings of a Paramecia. However, this was just overlooked by many because Luffy's Devil Fruit was assumed to be a special Paramecia like Katakuri's. Furthermore, the fact that Luffy's true power may only be limited by his own imagination was also hinted at previously. For example, in Gear 3rd, Luffy is able to inflate his bones by blowing air into his body. But your bones are not actually connected to each other in a way that would allow air to pass from one bone to the other and inflate it. So this technique was always more of a feat of Luffy's imagination than something that made sense in a logical or scientific way. On top of that, throughout the series, Luffy appears to be incorporating the techniques of his rivals into his own powers and abilities. Like when he reinterprets the Rokushiki abilities and uses them in his own attacks. This again implies that Luffy's Devil Fruit ability is not stagnant. Rather, it is evolving and expanding as Luffy's own experience and imagination evolve and expand. In the past, it has been stated that zone-type fruits are exceptional in terms of their toughness and recovery speed. I believe it was actually Crocodile who said this. And if we look at Luffy's abilities, it is clear that his recovery speed and toughness matches that description. But with Luffy being a shonen protagonist, I feel like most of us just assumed that this was part of his protagonist powers. Now, there were other clues about Luffy's true power that were more on the nose, like for example the color spread of chapter 1028, which features the Straw Hats as gamers/video game characters. On this page, Luffy appears to be representing Ken from Street Fighter, but if you take a closer look at his hair, it is clearly foreshadowing what his hair will look like in Gear 5th. So yeah, I am inclined to believe that Oda had the Nika fruit in mind since the very beginning, and that he has been teasing us with it for nearly 25 years. That is definitely a 5D chess move if I ever saw one, but it gets better. Because we know that Oda has been teasing us and giving us clues about Luffy's true powers since the beginning, it's likely that there are still more clues out there about the full extent of his ultimate power that we are yet to identify. In other words, Oda may have already told us what full power Luffy will be capable of and how the story will ultimately end. First, let's talk about Rubber Hose animation, the old animation style that clearly inspired Luffy's new Gear 5th abilities. This animation style dates all the way back to the 1920s and 30s, and it is considered to be the first animation style that became a standardized style in America. The style is known for featuring characters whose arms and legs seem to have the properties of a rubber hose. They can move wildly, and they don't appear to have any bones, joints, or wrists. Essentially, this allowed the characters to move in completely unrealistic ways, and their movements were not bound by the confines of science or biology. If you've heard of Cuphead, then you know what rubber hose animation is because Cuphead itself is an homage to this animation style. Although rubber hose animation fell out of favor as more realistic animation styles were developed in the 1930s, many of its quote-unquote unrealistic elements were carried over to future animations, and they are present in such popular cartoons as the Looney Tunes. We've all seen those crazy effects when a cartoon character's eyes pop out of their head when they're surprised or scared, or the character pulls a giant thing out of their pockets that couldn't possibly fit there, or the character pulls up the entire floor from under them, or the character walks calmly on air and he doesn't fall until the moment that he realizes that there's nothing under him. Roadrunner, Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Scooby-Doo, and many other classic cartoons are full of this type of stuff. Luffy's new powers, Gear 5th or the Nika Devil Fruit Awakening, are clearly based on this type of animation. And actually in chapter 1044, we saw Luffy's eyes pop out, we saw him turning the floor into rubber and pulling it up from under him to rebound Kaido's attack, we saw his limbs temporarily growing to a ridiculous size, and so on. This is certainly an instance of Oda paying tribute to rubber hose animation, and it also adds a brand new flavor to the story as a whole, and to Luffy's fighting style in particular. But Oda didn't pick this power just because he liked the art style. There is more to it than that, and this is another thing that has been hinted at for a very long time in the story. The Gorosei state that the power of the Nika fruit is not just possessing a body with the properties of rubber, although that is a big part of it. Once it awakens, the Nika fruit allows its user to fight in any way he wants, and he has an incredible amount of strength and freedom. As I mentioned earlier, the user's power is connected to the power of his own imagination. But this devil fruit had not awakened for over 800 years, not since the Void Century. This is likely because its previous users did not have the drive and the imagination to initiate the fruit's awakening. But Luffy has always had that drive ever since the very beginning. He had big dreams ever since he was a little kid. He wanted to become the Pirate King and the freest man on the sea. And it is this massive dream that has been guiding him all this time. This dream has given him the drive to overcome insane obstacles, surpass his limits, and do the impossible in the pursuit of true freedom. And that is why the Nika fruit awakened in this moment. For the first time since Joy Boy, the Nika fruit found a user who has the vision, imagination, and determination to unlock its true power and potential. So, in my opinion, Luffy's new cartoonish power wasn't just a stylistic choice by Oda. Gear 5th literally represents true freedom, and not just freedom in the conventional sense. It's not just freedom to do whatever you want without someone else stopping you. Gear 5th symbolizes freedom from all restraints, even the restraints of reality itself. The best way that I can explain this is by referring to Zen Buddhism, which has certainly been a clear inspiration for Oda over the course of the series. Now, I am not a Zen master, but I do practice Zazen, and this is how I understand it. True freedom means complete non-attachment. It means truly letting go of everything. And this doesn't just mean letting go of all your material possessions, which is merely the first step for monks who decide to leave home and embrace a monastic life. Letting go of everything means letting go of all conceptual thinking, all attachment to quote-unquote reality. When we say that something is realistic, it means that it matches up with all of our preconceived notions about what is possible and impossible, scientific and unscientific, logical and illogical. But what if those preconceived notions did not exist? What if you were like a newborn child, completely free from all classifications, definitions, and limitations? What if you looked at the world with a completely clear and open mind? What if the sentence, "the birds are flying through the sky," and the sentence, "the fish are dancing in the trees," were both the same thing to you, and one was not more or less plausible than the other? That would be true freedom. Nothing to hold on to, nothing to limit you, nothing to classify you or be classified by you, no biases, no preconceived notions, no concepts at all, just infinite possibility. That is the true nature of Luffy's new power, the power of infinite potential. With Luffy's childish innocence and endless determination, it goes without saying that he will be able to take his new abilities to incredible heights. And the better he gets at using this power, the more he may be able to warp reality itself and shape it according to his own whims, which will make him a practically unstoppable fighter. That said, there will almost certainly be some serious drawbacks to Luffy using this insanely broken power, otherwise he would become too strong and the story would become boring. If you're interested in what kinds of drawbacks Luffy might experience until he learns to truly master Gear 5th, check out my video in which I talked about the possibility that Luffy's Devil Fruit could be devouring him from the inside, link in the description. But assuming that Luffy will learn to control and master his new power, who could possibly challenge him now? Who can stand against an awakened Devil Fruit with the power of a literal god, a power that allows its user to bend reality itself? Could there be other Devil Fruits out there with straight up godly powers that are able to actually challenge Luffy's newfound abilities and make the story even more interesting as we approach the final epic arcs? Well, we just recently dropped a video here on the channel which speculated that Blackbeard may also have a mythical zone fruit with a power that is equal to and the perfect counterpart of Luffy's sun god Devil Fruit. In the past, Blackbeard has straight up said that his Devil Fruit is the most dangerous power in the history of all Devil Fruits. And he also said that his Devil Fruit chose him, as if it had a will of its own. We already know that Blackbeard's Devil Fruit possesses properties that are not consistent with its classification as a Logia. For example, Blackbeard cannot use his Devil Fruit to avoid attacks by letting them just pass through him, which is something that every skilled Logia user should be able to do. So far, we just assume that he has a special Logia, in the same way that many of us assumed that Luffy had a special Paramecia, but we all know how that turned out. Knowing how similar Luffy's and Blackbeard's Devil Fruits are in appearance, I wouldn't be surprised if Blackbeard lied about his Devil Fruit being a Logia in order to mislead everyone about its true power and potential. What if his real Devil Fruit is a mythical zone that grants him the power of a god, just like Luffy's? Only his might be the Moon God or the God of Darkness or something along those lines. If you want to examine this concept in greater detail, check out the full video on Blackbeard's real Devil Fruit power, link in the description. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Are there more Devil Fruits out there with godly powers like Luffy's Nika Devil Fruit? And if so, is Luffy going to have to face off against them at some point in the future? Will Blackbeard turn out to be Luffy's ultimate rival, the man with a Devil Fruit as strong as his own? Don't forget to leave your thoughts. I always like hearing from you. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more One Piece content right here on the channel, please leave a like and comment. It only takes a second, but it helps a lot with that YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch our videos, but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!